Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from the UK, English language, released in the year 2017, directed by Simeon Halligan, and this film is called Habit. So Habit is about this main character. He's a very troubled individual. He's a young adult. He's got a sister roughly the same age, and they both went through a horrible traumatic event in their childhood that has scarred them since. And so they're really being controlled by their demons. The main character is jobless. He's going to welfare offices. He's drowning his sorrows with alcohol, and he's got a sister who has a job, but like the main character, she is reliant on alcohol, but the alcohol is just really intensifying their problems, and so it's basically a dead end that both of them are heading to, but they really want to work for each other and give each other a better life, but the demon from the past is really just having control of them. And so one day this main character's life is about to change when he comes across this young woman at the welfare office, and pretty soon the two of them connect with each other. And so when this young woman realizes that the main character doesn't have a job, she tells him, look, my uncle owns this brothel. Now he's actually going to give you a job. And so this main character sees this as an opportunity to jump forward and make a better life for not only himself but his sister. But what this uncle of this character doesn't basically tells him is that, okay, I'll give you a job as a doorman. Your job is to make sure the girls are safe. And pretty soon there is a family sort of environment that this uncle has actually created. And for once, this main character feels like he belongs somewhere. But unfortunately, there is something very sinister behind this brothel that is going to turn this man's life around. And so whether or not it's turning its life around for the good or the bad is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Habit. I was very, very excited for this movie. Now when I saw the trailer and I heard a few people talking about it, I thought to myself, this is going to be another Eden Lake or Kill List. Movies that really hit you with the power of a sledgehammer, not only through the visuals and the grotesque nature of a film, but also the human connection. And so I thought, alright, well, British horror films do this very well. And so the excitement levels were there, but unfortunately there was a little bit of hesitation there because Simeon Halligan has created some other films that I didn't really like. And so mixing that in, I was actually going to give this movie a fair opportunity to really impress me. I was very excited and I really wanted it to work, but unfortunately I come away from this movie bitterly disappointed because it didn't really focus on all the right areas, and I don't feel as though it reached its full potential. Therefore, that's why it became so disappointing. Now, what I liked about this movie is low budget, and the low budget does work in its favour. It creates that grimy atmosphere. This is England. This is a society that has pushed these people to the other way, and they're ostracised people, and they're ostracised people finding solitude within each other, and that family dynamic within people who we consider as outcasts. And so I thought that theme was very interesting. That theme, combined with the very likeable main two characters, should have been the recipe for success. It should have been the jumping board for a movie that did hit me with so much emotion, but unfortunately, as I said, the surrounding elements just don't gel together, and it doesn't complement all the good things that this movie has going for it. So pushing the negatives aside for a slight moment, as I said, the cinematography is very well used. I thought that the low budget gives it that grimy feel and gives it that sense of desolation and hopelessness within this main character. I thought the acting was actually quite decent from the main character and the sister. I thought their dynamics were very authentic. I could feel the brotherly and sisterly love. I could feel as though this could be my sister or this could be my brother. You know, basically my life could have turned out like this if I had a traumatic event, and how trauma can really have a hold on you. And so there's a lot of psychological potential that this movie has, and I think that's why it develops a very sorrowful and very sympathetic main two characters. And so I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to find that happiness that they were so sorely seeking. And even if they go down very dark and twisted paths, I knew that they were trying to do it for the right intentions. And so because of that, I could actually follow them and I could keep following them. And I just thought that there was quite a bit of emotion between these two. And so I thought, all right, well, that is good. And then you've got the side of the horror. Now, the horror is unfortunately where this movie falls apart. It is very bloody. There's a lot of sex. And so it's a very sexualized sort of violent film. So if that's your kind of thing, then you're probably going to like the way that Habit goes about its business. But unfortunately, this is what a lot of extreme horror films suffer from, is basically they're getting themselves distracted with all the really cheap material as opposed to really focusing on the solid material that the film has. The solid material is the character psychology, the themes that the movie is trying to depict. But unfortunately, it's just there to exist. It's just there on face value. Nothing is ever really developed to a point where I felt as though the potential was realised. And so it does focus on really gratuitous nudity, sex, very good looking women, and all the cheap sort of thing you would expect from an extreme horror film. And so the extremity to the film overclouds all the positive material that the film has, and so that's why I come away from it so disappointed. The overall story just doesn't develop those themes in a way where I felt as though it was rewarding. I just felt as though it was very, very shallow. The supporting characters were nowhere near as good as the main two, so when they come into the film, I just thought they were there for cannon fodder. It was there for filler. I thought the uncle of this film, he owns this brothel. I thought that was very interesting. The way he actually created his own sort of family and what they're up to is very sinister, but that just doesn't have any depth to it as well, and so it doesn't sustain your interest, and therefore you become very bored by the time the film finishes. And so it's an extreme film that relies on this extremity to create that memorability, but because there's nothing behind that memorability, it just becomes something that is very disposable, and that is so unfortunate because Simeon Halligan, as I said, created characters that were so good. And this is the hardest part of a film. If you have really good characters, you should be making a really good film. But unfortunately, with a lot of extreme films, it's all about the violence, it's all about the nudity, it's all about what you can see, and it's just very lazy filmmaking. But unfortunately, a lot of these extreme horror films don't have characters. But this movie, it feels like they've created really interesting characters by accident. They don't realise this, and so they've thought to themselves, they don't have confidence that these characters are going to maintain your interest, and they don't want to go down a path that would actually require soul searching, so they're going to hit you with really cheap material, and therefore that's going to compensate for it. But unfortunately, it does hurt the film considerably. Is that it outstayed its welcome well before the end. I checked out completely. I thought it was very boring. It was very monotonous. It just doesn't elevate itself to thrilling levels at all. I just thought the horror element wasn't scary. It wasn't that extreme. Yes, there's a lot of blood, there's a lot of gore, but it's not very graphic, and so I can excuse that, is that it's not all about violence. But unfortunately, if you're going to rely on extreme material, you need to make something that's going to really last in the memory, but nothing really lasts in the memory in this film. If you're after a teenage mentality of just looking at naked women, sex and blood, then this movie might appeal to you. But for me, just the fact that it didn't realise its potential was the movie's biggest disappointment. So it is a pretty ordinary film. Unfortunately, it's nowhere near as good as I wanted it to be, and as a result of that, I'm only going to give Habit 2 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.